my name is Chapter Marie and we're continuing with the Abraham Seed series, and today we're doing chapter 21 from verse 1 to 8 about the story of the birth of Isaac. So let's do a little recap. You remember in chapter 18 the Lord had met Abraham and Sarah and had told them that in a year's time Sarah would have a son. That was one word. You also remember in chapter 17 when the promises of God were written down as a covenant finally between Abraham and God. And God's part was to honor his promises, and Abraham's part of that covenant was to teach his children and to keep his to be faithful and to keep the laws of the Lord through the generations. And of course, there was a token seal, which was a circumcision. Okay? And so in chapter 21, verse 1 says, "And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him." So exactly as the Lord had promised, it happened, and Sarah had a son. And they named him Isaac, as the Lord had already instructed, because Isaac means the Lord loves. And as you read through the scriptures, you realize that when the Lord loves, it's a declaration of victory in warfare. So basically, God was saying that in this moment, Sarah was barren, Abraham was old, Sarah was also old. It had gotten to a point where she was not even getting her period anymore. But anytime in the Bible you see the Lord laughing, it's a laughter that is a declaration of victory over his enemies in warfare. So in this instance, Isaac was actually a representation of the victory that the Lord had wrought in that generation and in that life. And as we said, as we're talking about wombs, is that Sarah, the Lord had specifically called her princess, as in daughter of the Most High King, because not only was she the mother of kings and the mother of nations, and the one who would bear the generation which would grow up and walk before the Lord. And through the generations, through her lineage, the Son of Man and the Son of God would be born. But she was also, like in that region, she was a gate that once broken, in her having a child, conceiving and bearing a son, then it would also usher in a new era of abundance and prosperity in the land, a new era of peace and togetherness in the land. And we see that one of the first things that happened is that Abimelech welcomed Abraham and his entire household to live among them in their land. So in a way, Abimelech was the first person to give Abraham a possession of some sort. Yeah. So she had the son, and as we continue to read, you realize that Abraham did exactly what the Lord had instructed him. He performed the circumcision, which is a token seal. So in a way, in that moment, at 8 days, Isaac had become an inheritor of the covenant between Abraham and the Lord. And the only way to, you realize that the covenant between the Lord and Abraham had a time constraint in that it was eternal, an eternal covenant. So the covenant would hold through the generations. The covenant would hold throughout his entire lineage. But the only way for any person at any time to activate a covenant in their lives was to do the part where the people were supposed to honor. Number one, to uphold the token seal, and number two, to walk before the Lord. And so in that moment, Abraham ensured that Isaac had been, in a way, circumcised into the covenant. And from then on, I'm sure he went on to teach his son and to direct him in the ways of the Lord. And I'm sure from then on, anytime he had conversations with the Lord, Isaac would be invited into that conversation. And so we read on and we realize that Sarah said, "God has made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me." In that moment, she, in a way, intimated that for a long time people had been laughing at her because she was barren, she did not have any children. She had been treated as less than a woman in a way, but at that moment, the Lord had wiped the shame from off her face. And that also takes us back to the story of Abimelech, because he also gave 1,000 pieces of silver to wipe the shame off her face. So in a way, anything the Lord is doing in your life, there will always be a physical manifestation, especially when it comes to covenant. You cannot truly say that you and the Lord have a relationship if there's no physical manifestation. There's no physical result of the conversations that you have with the Lord. And it's not always just material. You realize it can manifest in, let's say, you have been having rocky relationships, but from now on, you will start to realize that there's more sanity and peace in your relationships. You realize that your neighbors are becoming friendlier to you. You realize that suddenly your health is fortified. You realize that where there was struggle for you to get ahead, nowadays it's easy for you to do it. You realize that before it was hard for you to remain true to your word, but now faithfulness comes naturally to you. Things of that sort. And so verse 8 says, and the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. Okay, so that's where our study ends for today. The reminder that you have for today is God is an honorable God. He is a covenant-keeping God. He is faithful. So you should always go before Him with that in mind, and therefore that will encourage you to respond in kind. And you realize one of the things that Abraham said in chapter 20 is that he feared that the fear of the Lord was not in that place. The fear of the Lord is the only thing that could ever inspire you to remain faithful to the Lord. Because when all else fails, the fear of the Lord in you is a thing that reminds you He is supreme, you depend on Him. He's all-powerful, you depend on His power. He is perfect, and so the relationship that He has with you in a way benefits you more than it does Him. So the fear of God is the one thing that keeps people faithful. It will keep you holy, it will keep you consecrated, it will keep you on the path that you're promised to walk with the Lord. Because the fear of God, one of the things that it opens up to you is the wisdom that is in the Lord, the knowledge that is in the Lord. It gives you an understanding of who the Lord really is. It teaches you how to explore the different dimensions of God, to explore the different kinds of relationships you can have with the Lord. And it teaches you how to behave the right way before the Lord. So as you're walking before the Lord, in every way and in every aspect, He is your first concern, then everything else follows. So Abraham had become a man who had learned the fear of the Lord. He had learned faith, and he was living in the dimension of grace. And as we have said before, grace is capacity and freedom to do and be. So it's actually the grace of the Lord that protected Sarah in Abimelech's house. It's the grace of the Lord that enabled Abraham to have enough faith for a child to proceed out of his bowels. It had gotten to a point where both he and his wife could not naturally have a child, but they ended up having a child because Isaac was a product of faith. Salvation manifests in our lives by grace through faith. And salvation, yes, it begins at the point where you're born of water and the Spirit, but it continues throughout your life. As long as you're a man who walks before the Lord, as long as you're a woman who walks before the Lord, even the children you bear, they are a product of your faith. They proceed from your bowels. They proceed from the place where you interact with the Lord, from the secret place where you cry before the Lord, where you offer your sacrifice before the Lord, where you bring your thanksgiving and praise before the Lord. That's where everything about you proceeds from. That's where your career proceeds from. That's where your relationships proceed from. That's where your daily meditations proceed from. And therefore, and such things, when they come forth in your life, no one can ever take them away from you. People chase the honor of men, but men are fickle. You realize people can be your friend today and next week they pretend they don't even know you. You can have a job today, but a week from now you will get fired. But once you have the right kind of relationship with the Lord, then your life does not depend on the things and the circumstances in your life. It does not depend on the people who are in your life. It solely depends on the Lord. And He chooses the people who will be around in your life. For seasons or for covenant, it does not matter. He directs you to the job and the work that you should be focusing on. He directs you to the kind of people you should be relating with. And the fear of the Lord also causes you to be the kind of person who obeys the word of the Lord. Okay? So I love you. I'll see you tomorrow for what comes next.